Hello and welcome to Retro Racing Reviews, where this time out we're going to be having a look at rock and roll racing. Now, we can't really go on and have a look at rock and roll racing without talking about RPM Racing, the game that came before it was developed by Silicon and Synapse. There's a bit more about them later on, but we're going to be having a look at just one single race from RPM Racing before we go into rock and roll racing, simply because it's worth having a look at the actual game engine itself. This is effectively almost a beta version of what rock and roll racing turned out to be, so it's quite interesting to see how the changes go from one version of this to the other. Now, immediately you'll see graphically it's not particularly appealing. Also, you can see I don't get a very good start, but otherwise the backgrounds are quite flat. The sound is a bit muddy, there's not really a lot of life to it, and realistically it's quite dull as far as things go. When you had something, for example, like RC Prime, which I've also reviewed on the Game Boy, coming out at about the same sort of time, and even though the Game Boy a lot less sophisticated than the Super Nintendo, it was a much more fun game. I hate to say it, but there's just really not an awful lot to this. Now, Silicon Synapse obviously thought that they were onto something. This game had a track editor, and there was an awful lot you could do with it if you wanted to put the time in. So this was the engine they eventually leveraged into rock and roll racing, but as you can tell, given the fact that I'm already quite bored of watching this back, not maybe as bored as I was while playing it, but after about a lap or so it's really sort of lost its appeal. There's no pizzazz there to keep you interested. They went ahead and decided to develop rock and roll racing, and to give it its hook, it's in the title, they decided to digitize, I suppose, turn into MIDI files, a collection of old proper classic rock tracks. I mean, you're looking at things like Paranoid by Black Sabbath, Born to Be Wild by Steppenwolf, Highway Star by Deep Purple, some proper old classics. Oh yes, also one thing about this game is, as you can clearly see, I cannot get up this hill for the life of me, and I'm not really sure why. It's not really something that you think would be acceptable in a full-price console release. Having a part of the level you just simply can't get up. So yes, while I struggle with this, I'm just going to go back to looking at what made rock and roll racing so good by comparison. They definitely went with the visual aesthetics you'll see going forward. It has a sort of combination of cyberpunk, Mad Max, aliens, all sorts of other bizarre things, and they really gave it a sense of flavour that RPM Racing just lacks. In a really good advert for giving your games personality to make people want to buy and play them, even though technologically they're pretty much an equivalent. So they took slightly different visuals, as you'll see, and they took the music, they definitely jazzed up the presentation, and from 1991 through to 1993 the difference is quite striking. So I'm just coming back up to this hill. Let's see if I have a bit more luck getting up this time round. Just about. So yes, really RPM Racing has at this stage given us everything it's likely to give, but I'll finish the race just for sake of completeness, and then we'll go on to actually have a look at rock and roll racing as it stands. Now, they've tried to effectively bring it back a couple of times, most recently an unlicensed version, which, let's face it, looked pretty cool, but they didn't have the license, and I think overall, there we go. That's better. As I was saying, sadly they haven't been able to bring this back in any way, shape or form, but the original, just a hell of a good game. You can immediately see visually far more appealing. We're going to go on Warrior because I tried this out on sort of the intermediate level, and to be honest, I've played this for so long, the muscle memory is still there. You get a series of colourful characters, all of whom have slight variations in what they're good at. There are some secret characters in there, like Olaf the Viking, for example. I'm going with Katarina Leons because she's good at jumping. Very important. You get a selection of different cars as well, so I'm going to be the yellow one just because it's easier to spot. So you either get the sort of the hot rod or the beetle equivalent, and you've got to score 1400 points to get to the next planet, and across the different planets you get different backgrounds, different enemies to race against, and immediately it feels, even though the gameplay is very similar, it's a good start, a lot more high octane. The MIDI versions of these songs aren't actually that bad. I mean, certainly for me, when I started playing this when I was about 12, 13, I hadn't really heard of these tunes, and it was a really good introduction to sort of classic rock music. I mean, given the fact that Black Sabbath come from just down the road from where I grew up, actually having a rendition of one of their most famous tracks on here was pretty cool. Now, you immediately see that they've changed things slightly by personalising all of the drivers, not just the ones that you're racing as. The competitors in the grey and the orange vehicles are called Rip and Shred, and then the other one would always be, yes, I'm stuck on a hill again, but you can crab shuffle up it and do a little bit better than last time, but I'm still significantly far down the field, so let's try and get myself back up to the yes, thank you. The announcer does also add a lot of personality to it and can give you some useful information if your competitors are low on health. As I was saying, the fourth player is always somebody dependent on the planet, so if you have a look at my blog post, you'll see a selection of the different characters that you come up against. So let's just have a look at... Oh! Nicking third on the line. Excellent.
First place knockout. Shred finishes second. Cat is a weak third.
You'll see they're effectively palette swapped. If you play two-player, then I believe it's Shred who drops away, and it's just yourself, player 2, Rip, and the other CPU player.
Cat is about to blow.
Now, one of the interesting things about this, and this is pretty obvious if you've had a look at my my blog post, because I do a sort of 6 degrees of separation as part of the text. But what you're actually looking at is the first foray into gaming of the company that is now Blizzard. So yes, if you're looking for what they were doing to start off with, they were making this. Not Warcraft, not StarCraft, not any of that stuff. The people who've just bought you Overwatch and once again have tapped into a brand new thing in gaming. They did this first, and you can kind of see at least a few of the parallels, that they've taken shooters which often really lack for personality, and they've changed it to make it all about characters. They've taken something that would otherwise be about as bland as wallpaper paste, and they've actually gone ahead and done something pretty clever. And Overwatch has gotten a lot of publicity. I mean, you've got to know who people like, Wilson, Tracer, and the like. And certainly at about this time, this is the kind of thing that you ended up with. Actually injecting some personality into things. One of the characters you could get was actually Olaf from the Lost Vikings, which is another thing that Blizzard started out very early in their careers doing. I believe they actually released both Lost Vikings and Rock and Roll Racing to play on through their website at one point, just to show that they still appreciate where they come from. And you see Viper, that's the racer who isn't one of the two generic ones who follow you around. But yes, so this is pretty much what you can thank this for all the hours that you spent on World of Warcraft, Diablo, etc. And I must have wasted so much time on this game when I was younger. It's the handling model is pretty good actually. You've got the D-pad for basic left-right controls, but you can use the shoulder buttons to pull off faster turns. You've got 3 different power-ups. So you've got your forward-facing lasers, either the green snot blasts on this level, but it's replaced by missiles a bit later on. Whoops. There you go. They may look like snot, but they still do the trick. Then you have the jump button, and it looks like some of the competition have just taken a wrong turning, but I'm not going to complain about that. And when you get a better car, those are replaced with turbo boosts. And finally, you've got your sort of rearward facing weapon. So at the moment, everybody's dropping oil puddles, which makes it really difficult to control sometimes. And you can drop mines, as you might have seen. They're the sort of blue spiky things that will become a lot more prevalent later on. So with the combination of, there we go, just ran over a mine just to demonstrate. Once you get more money, you can start to buy more upgrades, and it's just a general improving your car to go through.
Cat scores a first place knockout. Viper finishes second. Rip takes a weak third. Shred is in another time zone.
Is in another time zone. Sorry, I've heard this a few too many times before, but so there we go. Get your motor running, headed on the highway.
Let the carnage begin!
Weirdly enough, if you had the PlayStation, if you had the Mega Drive version of this, you got Radar Love as a bonus track. I'm not quite sure why that was the case, but I would have to say you could, if anybody actually got the license to do this and actually got some good tracks together. Can you imagine the equivalent would be doing it to, say, like The Darkness or something along those lines? Foo Fighters? I'd buy that. Whether you get people putting their names to something like that is another matter, but hey, it's not a terrible idea. I mean, Blizzard, if you actually want some money from me, then you could do worse than re-release this with a better, well, say with better sound quality, not a better soundtrack. That's sacrilege. So also, if Bungie, if you're listening, where's my only HD remake or only 2? I'm just saying, I've waited for 17 years. I'm prepared to wait a bit longer.
Rip fades into last. Viper jams into first.
That's the only thing was, because this was obviously a digital pad rather than actually having more degrees of movement, it can be a little bit hard to aim your shots. And weirdly enough, all the computer players do seem to have more ammunition than you do to start off with. So just take that into account. But once you get a few wins under your belt, it ceases to be a problem. And there we go.
Cat scores a first place knockout. Viper finishes second. Shred takes a weak third. Rip is in another time zone.
Going back to the issue of music again, it does make me wonder whether games companies should go ahead and allow you to put your own music back into things. I was playing Project Gotham 2 with some friends on the original Xbox the other day, and actually having some Joe Satriani, I think it was, as accompaniment was great. It really did add something to it. I mean, obviously for me, my friends just groaned and rolled their eyes, but it was something that for me, I really enjoyed having my own soundtracks of games, and I know that AAA titles are very much inclined now to go ahead and allow you to and obviously they've crafted a soundtrack for you to listen to instead, and you really got to go with the indie titles to actually to actually be able to almost play your own songs. But that's more a rhythm game in and of itself. I'm more talking having your Forzas, your Project Cars, your Gran Turismos, where you could have your own, create your own soundtrack, rip the MP3s onto your console, maybe put your Spotify account on there as well. I'm just thinking as an idea it could have merit. Now I'm in a bit of trouble here because, yep, that's always the risk of getting ahead of your computer opponents, and now I'm just slipping on all the oil. Yeah, the tracks do get a little bit treacherous by the end. Sometimes the oil can knock you in the right direction, other times not. In this instance, I don't think we're going to have quite enough to get past. Not quite. I'll run over the line in third.
Scores a first place knockout. Rip finishes second. Cat takes a weak third. Viper is in another.
Oh well, I get a nice rosette at any rate. So that's really the core gameplay of Rock and Roll Racing. Sadly, it doesn't look as if it's making a comeback anytime soon, but Blizzard, hats off to you, and I'll probably buy Overwatch at some point. It does seem a pretty fun game, but that's all for this particular review, so over and out. See you soon. Bye.